Hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whenever you are, however you're watching this. I want to thank you for being here. My name is Billy Bunton, and I'm filling in today for Jason Miles as co-host on this very special episode of This Is Revolution. If you're new to the channel, please like and subscribe. Am I hearing feedback? I think we're good. If you're new to the channel, please like and subscribe. And if you are enjoying what you see, make sure you hit the notification bell. And we're constantly adding new episodes and doing cross streams with other channels, adding additional new programming. So I want to send a massive shout out to all that do subscribe on YouTube, Twitch, and all the other audio only platforms. Much love to the patrons. You keep TIR independent and going. I hope to see you guys in the live virtual audience of the Mau Mau Hour, and for our movie night. So now with that out of the way, let's get to the good stuff. Let's get to our crew. My name is Billy Bunton. I'm filling in for Jason Miles. He's busy sewing the buttons back onto his breakaway pants. And I love that. That joke was written for me. And I was like, you know what? I like that joke. I'm going to go with this. Jason, rip away jeans. The buttons should not come off, okay? If they come off, hope you got your receipts, bruh. All right? And, but Jason will be back later. My name is Billy. And joining me is the man of the Mau Mau Hour, Pascal Robert. And also with us tonight, the faceless voice of reason, M2 Saint. Thank you. What's up?
You're messing up two Haitian names. One is Pascal Robert and M2 Sant.
Oh, thank you very much. Pascal Robert and M2 Sant. Thanks for that correction. I appreciate that.
It's all right, man. I'm just giving you some.
I'm
giving you some problems, man. For
I'm receiving it, brother.
For no reason.
How we doing? So today we're gonna talk about Clarence Avant. Is it Avant?
Clarence Avant.
Yes.
Clarence Avant. I think he pronounced the T from what I know.
Pronounced the T. Okay. Mm-hmm. So Clarence Avant, why should you care? Should we get into that? Clarence Avant?
Yeah.
I think we should.
Okay. I guess we'll start with this question then. Pascal, tell me who is Clarence Avant?
Clarence Avant is a man who was known in the Hollywood entertainment and political world as the Black Godfather. He was a media mogul before the quintessential contemporary media mogul was known. Basically, he was an intermediary between entertainment, talent, and the corporate media industry, and was known to be a kind of fixer who was able to breed consensus between entertainers and the media establishment. What is fascinating about Clarence Avant is not that simply kind of pablum explanation of his function. What's fascinating about him is how he rises at a time coming out of the urban rebellions of the civil rights movement, and how basically his function is to use Black entertainment to mask the fissures that are developing in the United States during a time between 1967 and 71, where you have 300 urban rebellions that are bringing American cities to embers, to the point where you have the federal government under Lyndon Baines Johnson issue the infamous Kerner Commission report in 1968, which has a very prescient portion of it called The Negro in Media, which discusses how one of the agenda of the American ruling class or power elite to use to neutralize the concurrent political militancy of the urban populations that are burning cities down. In other words, to radicalize,
Right.
to neutralize the militancy.
Yep.
We want to flush these Negroes with entertainment. The report literally says I could actually read the report. I have the section, the Negro in the media, in front of me, and I think it's very important to understand why Clarence Avant becomes a utility to the ruling class in the state in the wake of this report that is an official report that comes out of the Johnson administration in 68. The Negro in media. Finally, the news media must publish newspapers and produce programs that recognize the existence and activities of the Negro both as a Negro and as a part of the community. It would be it will be a contribution of inestimable importance to race relations in the United States simply to treat ordinary news about Negroes as news of other groups is now treated. Specifically, newspapers should integrate Negroes and Negro activities in all parts of the paper, from the news, society, and club pages to the comic strips. Television should develop programming which integrates Negroes into all aspects of televised presentations. Television is such a visible medium that such constructive steps are easy and obvious. While some of these steps are being taken, they are still largely neglected. For example, Negro reporters and performers should appear more frequently and at prime time in news broadcasts, on weather shows, in documentaries, and in advertisements. Some effort has already been made to use Negroes in television commercials. Any initial surprise at seeing a Negro selling a sponsor's product will eventually fade into routine acceptance, an attitude that white society must ultimately develop towards all Negroes. In addition to news related programming, we think that Negroes should appear more frequently in dramatic and comedy series. Moreover, networks and local stations should present plays and other programs whose subjects are rooted in the ghetto and its problems. And this is my editorial about that particular statement. In the context of the section above, one understands how, after 300 urban rebellions between 1967 and 1971, programs ranging from Soul Train to Good Times become important showcase spectacles of Black life and popular culture. Hence, the significance of Clarence Avant, who mastered pimping out Black identity to normalize the function of a nation premised on the oppression of his fellow Black citizens.
Wow.
So when oh sorry.
No,
So
please.
what prompted you to write that in 2019?
I'm just gonna. That's a very good question. I'll be very blunt. It's not that complicated. I was on Netflix and I just humbly stumbled upon the Netflix documentary, The Black Godfather, which was about Clarence Avant's life. I had never heard of this guy, and I'm a pretty, studious observant of Black popular culture and popular culture in general. And I was like, I've never heard of this guy. I've never seen him before. Who is this guy, and why is he so important? And I'm watching this documentary, and I'm literally stunned by how much power this man had. Who, and this is the thing that I found fascinating. If you look at the origins of Clarence Avant, this is a guy who started as a mob enforcer of entertainers. In other words, let me make this clear. When Clarence Avant is starting in the entertainment industry in the 50s and early 60s, something in excess of 70% of Black entertainers were controlled by organized crime. Clarence Avant was not a representative of black entertainment. Clarence Avant worked for organized crime as a Negro overseer of black entertainment to keep them in line for the mob.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a very powerful and different angle and perspective than you get today when we hear a lot of the talk about Clarence Avant and his role in black history and black culture. We hear, a pioneer and a partner and someone who was started in music and then spread to politics and film and all these, like you said, a mogul. Why do you think there's such a desire to keep a more positive spin to the life?
Listen, because Clarence Avant very, very intelligently made his utility more than to simply the entertainment industry. Clarence Avant very early on realized that he could use his role as a fixer in the entertainment world to influence the political power structure in the United States. And how I will state that is that if you watch the documentary, you realize Clarence Avant has had an intimate role in the election of every Democratic Party president in the post-civil rights era, from Jimmy Carter to Bill Clinton to Barack Obama. All right. Clarence Avant, early in Clinton's campaign, raised $1 million for Bill Clinton to get him elected.
Mm-hmm.
He was involved in Andrew Young's campaign in Atlanta. Avant, now understand, there is a history of the role of organized crime in the Democratic Party going back to the 60s. People are aware of this. People always talk about the role of the Democratic Party in fixing the election for John F. Kennedy in 1960 and all of organized crime in fixing the election and all that other stuff. But through various, intermediaries, there were some connections. And what is fascinating to me is that coming out of organized crime, coming out of being a vassal of organized crime, Avant comes in right after the Kerner Commission is telling us we need to see black people explode throughout media and pop culture and performers and entertainers. Clarence Avant now is leveraging his influence over media to be a foot soldier for the Democratic Party at its earliest post-civil rights moment. So what this tells me is that this guy was not simply working amongst forces in the entertainment industry. This is a guy who basically was in line with the left flank of capital and its power elite, curating black political consciousness through the entertainment industry and facilitating that consciousness into the Democratic Party throughout the post-civil rights era, and ensuring that the bona fides, or the benefits, or I should say political fatback and biscuits, are inured to him and his acolytes. So you can make an argument that Clarence Avant is a member of the black political class, or as Black Agenda Report likes to call them, the black misleadership class in the entertainment industry, who has not only a media and pop culture role, but also a political role within that system.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that I find interesting in this 1967 commission is how is it seems it's hard to distinguish it from the broader arguments being made from like diversity, equity, and inclusion today. It's a very similar thing. You know, we need more images. We need more Black images, and there's something about that. I think there's value to that, and I think the tone of the commission report tells me that they were dealing with a time when Black people were just purely excluded. White people responded to, the moment by saying we're just going to create our stuff entirely over here, and so there's these competing ways of thinking about how Black people move forward in that moment. Does that make sense?
Well, this is the thing you have to understand, Billy, is that the current commission report is less about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and more about political neutralization.
Right.
This is a report that is basically responding. Can you imagine what it means to have 300 cities in the span of 4 years to be burnt down in majority Black urban rebellions?
That's a serious moment, and they had to respond to that. But I guess what I'm trying to point to then is the diversity, equity, inclusion. That whole argument clearly falls short of what's needed in a similar way. It's also a neutralization of a sort. It's a way of putting our attention.
I don't disagree with you. No, I was going to get there as well. I absolutely agree with you, because understand something. These tactics are about creating. First of all, let's make this abundantly clear. We're all kind of on the left here. Let's put it out there. These are all class projects. When I mean they're class projects, is that they create a buffer class of Black people in America who are the beneficiaries of the patronage of the ruling class through diversity, equity, inclusion, that become a mask to the reality that mass incarceration increases with more racialized, neutralization of poor and working class Black people. That the rate, the Black home ownership has not changed since 1968. That 33% of adult Black men in the United States have a felony conviction as of today. All right, a third. That's a fact. And though there has been an increase in the middle class, yes, the degrees of Black poverty and unemployment have decreased from the times of Jim Crow. What has happened is that in the wake of this quote-unquote Black media elite and Black professional elite, you can wake up and say, oh, we have Oprah, we have Jay-Z, we have, you see all these Negroes. It can't be that bad. It creates a mask to the overall suffering of not only poor and working class Black people, but poor and working class Americans. It denies the capacity of having class unity, because now you have these Negroes who are doing so well, and you see them saying, oh, it's the white working class and their racism that's a problem. While you have white kids, dying on opioid overdoses all over the country. So it creates an illusion of Black success that is class-based, that works well to maintain the function of the American ruling class and the system overall.
Right.
Particularly, this is happening as neoliberalism is gentrifying neighborhoods, destroying the Black middle class in itself anyway, neutralizing any illusion of things like transfers of wealth. Anyone who believes that nonsense gets that to goodbye within Black communities in the age of neoliberalism. And what you find is that this class project is most toxic in how it deludes working class and working poor and poor Black people to be vested in entertainment and the social life and entertainment. In other words, the political neutralization that was desired by the current commission report and the Johnson administration to de-radicalize generations of Black people has been profoundly effective.
Right. Right. I think it's it's so fun. It's so effective, such that it's warped our conversations and the words we use and the terms of how we judge ourselves. I think there's a challenge of like black culture, black politics that it exists alongside it exists in tandem with a broader white cultural phenomena and all of that stuff. And so we tend to judge ourselves by being it's like these same markers. So the first vice president, the first president, the first person who could lead the this empire is black, and we struggle to sometimes find the argument for why that's not a good thing,
Mm-hmm.
and people struggle. Like I hear people who will say straight away, we're 13% of the population, so we need to be 13% of Congress and 13% of billionaires and 13% of scandals. 13% of corporate scandals should be black,
And then that's progress.
And that's progress of a sort, and that's nutty.
We do have a super chat here.
All right.
Let me pull it up. This is from JB. JB says, was there any connection between the Kerner report and the DNC reforms post 1968 and turn to identity-based brokerage politics to modernize the Dem Party?
It's a very good question. I don't have explicit evidence of connections between the Kerner Commission report and the DNC reforms post 68. But I do know that many of the DNC reforms come out of the 68 convention, the urban rebellions, and particularly the fact that in 72, the black political class and the black radicals came together in Gary, basically threatening to march out of the Democratic Party and move along their own direction until the black political class basically hijacked that meeting and assured that black people would be wedded to the Democratic Party well into the 20th and 21st century. But I would also argue that you cannot underestimate the role of Jesse Jackson in his election bids in 84 and 88 for making certain kind of adjustments to the national election cycle rules and regulations that actually had a role in trying to allegedly becoming more inclusive, but really actually work more to his benefit than to black voters overall. The real answer is I can't definitively say there's a correlation, but I think there's factors that go along after that, and that definitely correlate to the question you're asking.
Cool. I guess in the entertainment realm, as I was reading your piece, it made me think about different shows like the Cosby Show. I grew up on the Cosby Show as this like aspirational, awesome family, black family. They existed in a space that wasn't explicitly racially. There wasn't a lot of racial problems that they undertook. And that this was like a good thing. And like I compare that to maybe Good Times, which dealt with race directly, a generation earlier as an entertainment form. So I don't know, let me just throw that out there as a bomb,
I mean, one of the things I always found fast, I never liked the Cosby Show. I'll be honest. I watched it while I was in high school, throughout college. And one of the reasons I liked A Different World, but I didn't like Cosby. One of the reasons I didn't like the Cosby Show is I was offended by the fact that this show was depicting black New Yorkers as living in some kind of Shangri-La in the 80s, when we were dealing with things like Eleanor Bumpers, David Getz, Yusef Hawkins, the Howard Beach murders, all of these horrendous racial incidents of racialized murder and death to black citizens, and yet there was never any kind of discussion of what was actually going on in New York City when you watch the Cosby Show. It was like, and this is also combined with that during the Reagan administration, one of the most reactionary administrations in my lifetime, and there's no pushback.
Yeah, it's nothing depicted in that stuff. Yeah, but it's funny because I just I think about how I grew up on the Cosby Show and how, as my mom, there were lots of shows I couldn't watch, but the Cosby Show is definitely one that just it showed access, and it showed
Aspirational black
yeah,
excellence. Yeah.
and I think as well, the Godfather represented that too. And this, the legacy continues of sort of this black excellence today with like
Oh,
Jay-Z.
it's all the rage today.
Yeah. So like a Jay-Z character, Jay-Z, Beyonce, King
The
and Queen,
Obamas.
the Obamas. Who else?
Well,
I mean, there's lots of people now.
oh no. I mean, one of the most insidious things to me, August traditionally is considered the month what's called Black August to celebrate the black radical politics of the Black Power era, Black Panthers, also the beginning of the Haitian Revolution. It's been co-opted this year to be Black Business Month.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
and
this is a thing.
This is a huge thing. What is really fascinating to me, right, is that there's such a lack of memory on contemporaries in the political and social spaces of Black America that they act like this is new.
Right.
Obviously, these folks don't know that all of this initiated with Richard Nixon in the early 70s. And they also don't realize that Richard Nixon initiated Black capitalism as a means to de-radicalize and neutralize middle-class Blacks from supporting the radical politics of the late 60s, early 70s, and not only that, from assuring that they would be attached to the more conservative politics of the then Nixon administration.
Yeah.
It was a poison pill.
Yeah. What's funny is I see in the mainstream discourse today this like fear and concern that black men in particular, Black people generally, that might be moving to the Republicans, and of course, there's so many reasons for that, but they never address the first and primary reason, which is that the party that most Black people in America have been raised to support, that party has proven themselves, disingenuous and completely unconcerned with Black issues. And then they frame everything in a matter of there's only two ways to be politically. And so, you just have a dominant culture where people now looking for alternatives, but with what's still within the confines of what is an acceptable thought.
No, absolutely. I mean, listen, I'm not going to say by any stretch of the imagination that I'm going to celebrate Black anyone joining the Republican Party, but I also don't celebrate Black people being adherents to the Democratic Party either. I'm a big fan of third-party alternatives. I think the two-party duopoly is basically a system to maintain both parties are flanks of capital. The Democratic Party is the left flank of capital, and the Republican Party is the right flank of capital. And they both manage the political reality on the ground, or the realpolitik, in line with the flank of their donors that contribute to their coffers.
Right.
So, what they both serve the function of maintaining the capitalist system, which is ensuring that you have a consistent class of disenfranchised Black, brown, Latino, and other people in the United States perennially. So, how do you change that? You can't change that if we maintain adherence to this two-party system. They're both married to militarism. Something like 56% of every dollar in American taxpayers' money goes to fund military expenditures.
Yeah,
It's
insane.
It's absolutely insane to expect any kind of really transformative change in this kind of system. And what is more noxious about this system, particularly within the confines of Black American spaces, is that if you dare say that you should think outside the box in terms of political options in Black America, and you're not a Democrat, you will be chased down as if you have hounds coming after you, man.
Right. and it's nutty to see in this political moment with however bad you want to talk about the Republicans, whether you think fascism is at the door or we're going to get Donald Trump again. So on that side, then on the other side, you have a president who is, often not coherent and has, backslid on every promise, has brought us into war and all this stuff. And then we have a candidate like Cornel West, a candidate like Dr. Cornel West, and to see the fissures that certain people struggle to black people struggle to defend or support this obvious alternative in the moment. It's very funny to me. It speaks to identity often, I think, which goes back to some of the ideas and propaganda, the culture building that we're talking about here. But like the idea of being a Democrat or a Republican is an identity as powerful as being black might be, or being a woman might be in the heads of certain people. You know what I mean?
Well, remember what Joe Biden told Charlemagne the God, when he said, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. I mean, I remember that.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was kind of hilarious though.
That was wild. I forgot how that panned out. I think he got criticized for that, and then he backed away from that. But
Larry Elder was on the Breakfast Club, right wing Larry Elder, and clowned Charlemagne the God badly about that. Charlemagne the God asked Larry Elder, "Do you know what a N-word wake up call is?" And then Charlemagne explained it to him. And then Elder flipped it on him. He said, "Well, wouldn't you say that an N-word wake up call was when Joe Biden told you if you ain't black for voting for him, if you didn't vote for him?" And I mean, Charlemagne had nothing to say. I was like, wow, he just came. I mean, it's really disingenuous. I gotta say something about this. A lot of people are like, "Oh, Larry Elder, Ether, Charlemagne the God." Let me tell you how ignorant this is. Larry Elder is a University of Michigan trained lawyer. That's a top 10 law school. Why is it shocking that Larry Elder would Ether Charlemagne the God, who is, we don't even want to know. I mean, if he didn't, it would be pathetic.
Exactly. The real thing you're looking at there is that Charlemagne is an entertainer. He's a music DJ, radio DJ host who is now thrust into this like political spotlight and is given a platform to make political arguments. From what grounding? From what, like, we have no clue. And
you're bringing up the first show that Jason and I even had together. The first show we did was Who Speaks for Black People, about how Charlemagne the God became elevated to the voice of Black America. For those of you who are fans of This Is Revolution podcast, go back to our archives and watch the first 8 episodes that Jason and I did together.
I love that. I mean, how similar is that? I mean, I think the Charlemagne shows, again, it's like an absurdity. You can see how people can be chosen and
let me tell you something, Billy. You just created a very good segue that brings us back to the topic. Who chooses the spokesman for Black America? And what is the role people like Clarence Avant have in being the curator of these voices of who goes? I mean, I have a friend of mine who's one of my fraternity brothers who runs one of the more successful hip hop magazines in the country. And when I wrote my piece on Clarence Avant, he was like, "Man, I know Mr. Clarence, bro." Literally call him Mr. Clarence. "I know Mr. Clarence, bro. This ain't no light thing you got here, bro." I was like, "Well, do you think I'm being, do you think I'm wrong what I'm saying?" He's like, "Brother, it's not that. It's just that I don't think you understand. Mr. Clarence is a big guy in the industry." I was like, interesting. Okay. He was like, a couple of people who are proximate to the industry were like, "Dude, I don't think you want to be going at this cat." And I was like, "What's the problem?" What's the
It's not about calling things what they are. It's not about reality. It's not about discourse. It's not about an exchange of ideas. It's power and
Someone asked a very good question. Anton Delima. Is Clarence Avant elevated in liberal black press and leadership class? Ask Billy how he's being treated in American media upon his death right now.
Oh man, yeah. He's being treated very well. He was a mogul and a political genius and a person who made a lot of important deals and also brought us some music talent as well. But he also, it's funny because like you're saying, I hadn't heard of his name before. And so I think somehow very intentionally he played a more backseat
behind the
role,
scenes. Yeah.
There's a lot of power in that. I want to know from your article, Pascal, you believe Clarence, his ascension has something, his own talents, or is he more a product of timing, convenience?
I mean, listen, man, this is a cat who starts his career as a mob enforcer of entertainers. So that means he knew how to talk to people and intimidate. He knew how to talk to people and intimidate them. If you want to call that a talent, okay, fine. But he also knew how to deal with powerful people who would use violence to get what they want. Again, he knew how to deal with powerful people who would use violence to get what they want. The man started as an employee of the mob, as an overseer of black talent. Okay? And he shifts from that to a position, and let's not act like organized crime is not involved in entertainment, even in the late 60s and early 70s.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, you probably know more about that history than I do, but I'm loosely familiar. I mean, I want to talk about I want to talk about art, and I want to talk the challenge of art in what is art. Recognizing, I think, from my vantage point, that everything is political. Everything can't help but be political. And so sometimes when we talk about art, and let's talk about black art, let's talk about hip hop, sometimes we get this we try to separate things as though they aren't politically relevant. And Clarence kind of shows us that everything is sort of mixed this way, but I think every artist is contributing to something politically, whether they know it or not, and it's just helpful to be conscious of that. So as we're critiquing art, but I just find it's an interesting place to be because of course we value the individual expression,
Well, Billy, that's a fascinating conundrum, man, because let me tell you something. I'll be very frank with you, brother. I don't value the individual expression more than the collective damage it causes to American society. I don't. I'm not that interested in your artistic expression if the ruling class is able to use it to neutralize generations of, poor and working class people.
And I'm sympathetic.
I'm not one of these people who's into art for the sake of art. I'm not.
Gotcha. Is it a challenge in terms of assessing the harm? Because I always see like Clarence Avant could be looked at in an entirely different light. In fact, that's what ABC is doing to him, as they say that he bridged all these divides, he created black millionaires and all these things. I think I lost my question for a second there.
No, I mean, listen, when you understand, again, you're not going to have kind of status quo. I just look at the world every day, go to work, pay my bills, send my kids to college, want to be a member of the middle class. Folks we are socialized to accept the status quo in society. It takes a certain type of analysis that comes from looking outside the norm
Right.
to challenge that status quo. And it's not until you're able to challenge that status quo, particularly the function of the political economy of this country, the symbolism, the values, that you're going to be able to ask questions. What exactly is the real utility of someone like Clarence Avant?
Right.
Why is it that hip hop is 50 years old and rhythm and blues is dead? What utility does hip hop serve to the American status quo? Why is it the only music that's basically available in popular culture? Do we think that's an accident?
Right.
One of the things, I'm a big fan of, Adorno and Marcuse and the Frankfurt School, who are very big on this kind of analysis, one-dimensional man, where they basically argue that popular culture within the frames of American capitalism reflects the actual ideological superstructure of the ruling class and their ability to socially engineer the proletariat or the masses. All right. So, in other words, there is a political utility to popular culture that is going to escape people who say things like, "Oh, it's just music. What does it matter?" No, it's not just music.
Right. That's the key thing. Everything down to the words that you and I use to construct our understanding of reality, the words that we use, and then the words we don't use, the ways of thinking about a problem or a condition or not thinking about it are all given to us by whether it's the music we're listening to, the popular films being produced in Hollywood, the daily cable news stuff. It's really valuable to notice that, and then you get to see. But it's also a massive challenge because it points to the fact that everything has been constructed for us, and oftentimes, not in our favor.
I would
go ahead, Tucson.
Thank you. I would say that is just manufacturing consent. The media is absolutely in the business of doing that. And you can see it in things like obituaries. You see his value to the world is being a fixer and bringing all of these entertainers to light. You see his value to capitalism.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What did you think about the piece, Tucson?
Scathing. I thought it was scathing. You really you gave it to him. You gave him the Pascal treatment.
Do you think I was too harsh?
I don't think you were too harsh. You gave me what I expected to read at Black Agenda Report, which was an alternative view coming from a Black point of view. I hadn't heard about the documentary, but by the time I heard that Clarence Avant died, I remembered reading your article years ago. And I was like, hey, maybe we should do a show about this guy. He seems important. He seems to hold a special place in Pascal's heart.
Tell us why you mad, Pat. You told. I love it.
I'm not mad at all. I don't hold. Listen, Avant.
I didn't mean it that way. Yeah, I didn't mean it.
Avant is a cog in a wheel, and he's a big cog.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
He's one of others. Someone said Avant's daughter got cushy Bahamas ambassador under Obama. She was a failure, however. His daughter is married to Netflix co-CEO, and after the White House, Obama gets a nice Netflix deal. Thoughts, Pascal? Wow, that's a little juicy analysis right there.
Yeah.
Wow.
I knew about the daughter's connections with the Netflix guy. Yeah, that's true.
I did not know that the daughter was married to Netflix co-CEO.
That's right.
So she gets to air this huge hagiography to her father on her husband's dime.
Yes.
They'll get that money back. No worries. I think you know what the other thing this points to too is it because again black politics exists in broader dominant white politics, and I think there's just this culture has this mediocrity problem. I think in the sense that there's a lot of veneer, and we talk a lot about meritocracy and capitalism produces blah, 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 and all this stuff, and when in fact there's so much patronage and connections and things that are happening. And so I worked at CNN for a number of years, and there was a guy there who was a chief media correspondent, and his role was to analyze the media and critique the media the way that we are here. But in fact, what he did was he served to just kind of talk about Fox News, but make CNN look like they're the good journalists and all this stuff. And we just have we don't have a proper set of a system and process of values for evaluating the people that we elevate, so we end up elevating just whoever made the most money, whoever navigated these systems and made the most money, and we say that this is someone to be to emulate.
Revered.
and to emulate, and the kids have to look up to this, and so we're set up with an entirely wrong framing of how I think we should be processing this societal situation that we're in.
It's a very eloquent statement that you're making there, and I agree with it. But this is the nature of capitalism, Billy.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just got. What are you gonna do?
It's got to have an analysis. It protects you. That's what I found.
Yeah. And then I try to, have an analysis, and then I think we have to pull each other. We have to kind of develop our own, what's lacking. What I was trying to describe is some sort of method of analyzing who are the figures worth elevating, and then being part of doing that and building our structures.
For me, the standard is not that complicated. Elevate those who challenge the status quo to make the world better for the least of these.
I like that. I love that. The problem is that so many people believe that they're doing that project, right? Genuinely. So I know that there are a lot of clowns and different people pretending, but then you talk to people and they genuinely would say, yeah, well, that's what I'm here doing, So I want to figure out another, what, how do we talk about something other than navigating relationships to make more money, as a value, or else we'll continue to be building this in this way.
It's tough because Jay-Z exists as a example to everyone in the projects. He genuinely feels that way.
Yep.
No, he believes that he is an example of charity in and of himself.
That's right.
He's a charity to people. That's when I heard that, I was like, that's one of the most offensive, horrific things. Did you think your presence is charity? It's almost demonic, man.
Well, let me ask you this, because he is supposed to be, or maybe he may be getting groomed to be the next Clarence Avant.
Yeah. There's always going to be someone.
Is that in the ether, Tucson?
I've seen it in one or two places now that Clarence Avant has passed. But you look at him taking over the NFL shows. You look at him making all of these deals.
Yeah, he's been slowly building, and he says he's a businessman.
That's right.
He's not a businessman. He's a businessman, and that's his thing. And so he's been building it with his wife, and I saw a commercial. Was it an ad was it De Beers? Oh my gosh! It was the Diamond Company with who's the spokeswoman?
Oh,
the black actress from Us, from the movie Us.
Oh, Lupita?
Lupita! She's
wow, that was disappointing because I actually like Lupita.
Representing I think it was either De Beers or one of the diamond companies. And
Lupita Nyong'o, who
Mhm.
has Kenyan as ancestry,
Mm-hmm.
is
so
representing De Beers, a country that by its nature has to be connected to some of the greatest atrocities of African diamond exploration
yeah,
in history, without any question or conscience, goes to represent De Beers. First of all, let me tell you what that tells me. I'll be very y'all. You call me a conspiracy theorist. I don't care. Tell you something. That tells me that when the power structure chooses its black or brown face representatives, they understand the twisted messages that they're sending when they do it. I really believe that.
they do absolutely.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, and sort of like the commission implies, it kind of knows human nature inherently, that over time, so even this contradiction that you and I feel when you see Lupita on a De Beers ad, in a generation, these contradictions won't be felt in the same way, or
Mm-hmm.
less than a generation.
That's true.
Very eloquently stated, Billy.
That's
Very
true.
eloquent. Because Kenyan Lupita is sending African diamond mine De Beers. It's got to be okay.
Exactly. Check that website. She's the cover of it, and and again, in terms of the defining of Black progress, there's someone who say, "Oh my gosh, get money, congratulations, this is progress." Like, what do you mean? And I just it's just a very odd thing.
We do have a super chat here. This is from Tammy T. Tammy T says, "Great discourse on this topic. You guys are hitting on a lot tonight. We won't see or hear this on Revolt TV." Laughing emoji.
Yeah, I don't think Revolt would
Probably
be
not.
interested in kind of
Probably not.
socialist analysis.
Thank you for your generosity, Tammy T.
Yeah. Hmm.
Wow,
Yeah.
and thank you, Anton, for the good intel. De Beers owned apartheid RSA, probably still a large shareholder. Good God.
What's
Hmm.
that? Apartheid RSA.
Uh, RSA is hold on, I will get the official definition.
I'm seeing a
Yeah.
bunch of stuff. I'm not sure what RSA is.
RSA is actually a country in South Africa.
Oh,
Hmm. Republic of South Africa. Okay.
Yeah.
Republic of South Africa. He said he was there.
Wow. Yeah, in Republic of South Africa.
Yeah. So, there's always someone who's, well positioned to be that face and to land that contract and to lend legitimacy to whatever project is going on. And it's just you just need to build a consciousness, media consciousness.
Right.
But this is the question I gotta ask, seriously. In the face of all of this, nouveau black capitalism, nouveau black excellence, nouveau, hip hop, the new spokesman of capitalism in the hood, is there any sense of an appetite in black and brown spaces for socialist, anti-capitalist critique? I gotta ask that question, man. Particularly amongst younger people.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Too sad.
I mean, I think you can see it in some of the conscious raising around unions, around Amazon, around Starbucks. I think you could see it in the people who are searching for answers as to why their lives are the way they are, why there are so many generations of poverty in their family, how they just can't seem to get this capitalism thing to work for them, and who else it's not working for. But I mean, I think a lot of those people, they end up being attracted to things like BLM because they don't know that this is revolution exists. They don't know about Billy Bunton yet. They'll get there, but they don't know about it yet. Hopefully they're on their way. But I think for the most part is doubling down on capitalism. It's the imagination, and people they don't have the tools to think beyond it. And they're certainly not given the tools to think beyond it. Who's going to give them those?
Not at all. Yeah.
It's a tragic reality. I mean, one of the things about the new left of the late 60s and early 70s that I appreciate, at least, and there's a lot of room to criticize the politics of that area, though, is that they challenged capital. You know, there was a socialist presence in that politics. There was a anti-capitalist presence in that politics. And we haven't seen that in any time since in the post-50-year post-counter-revolution. That's probably the last time we saw large-scale numbers, up until the early 70s, large-scale numbers of black and brown folk and white folk interested in challenging capitalism. Yes, we had a kind of peak with Sanders in 16 and 20, but because of the obvious machinations of the black political class and its media acolytes, they really denied the capacity of black and brown communities from feeling that political movement. And it was a very effective strategy. It's sad.
Yeah.
It really, if you want to know what I'm really mad about, I'm still mad about the way mainstream media figures worked hard to turn working class and poor black people away from socialism in 2016 and 2020. That is something that I'm really mad about.
Very actively. Not only, I feel like at one point they would take the time to debate socialism and debate these concepts. And at some point there was a conscious turn to simply remove the entire framing from it. So you have this left and right conversation.
In the face of Hillary Clinton, you get a charlatan like Ta-Nehisi Coates who gets to be able to turn Bernie Sanders into the most racist candidate in the Democratic primary. It's
crazy.
The absurdity is sickening, man.
But it gets like things get reduced to buzzwords, and so there were people who were willing to say certain words to kind of do a kind of faux black radicalism, and if you say the right words, then you get access to be considered a viable candidate, or you have a viable position. The deeper. I said this to Jason. I was talking to Jason. Like, we have conversations on mainstream on television about gentrification, and the conversation people. You can walk away thinking that gentrification is about white people taking homes from black people, that it's a race conversation, not a class conversation, that it's entirely, for several years on when they talk about gentrification, it's simply a racialized discourse. And of course, race is part of the conversation, but to remove class from it, to not talk about income stratification and all of these, and part of it is absurd, but that's what we are. We just live in a period of deep absurdity in our conversations.
I think it's in the word gentrification. The gentrify, that comes from the gentry class. They come in and they have more money than the people in the area. There are different class of people who come in and have higher class than the people in the area. And they're able to outspend and all of that sort of thing. But it's completely stripped. It's obvious in a place like the UK where they have more class consciousness, but in the US, the word and where it comes from is completely stripped. That's what I've found.
So you'll have an hour-long conversation about about nothing, about not the problem.
Not the problem. That's right.
It's and it goes on, and it's allowed, and it's out of control.
And you get not the answer.
We get not the answer, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, we had an hour.
Yeah, we had an hour. Yo,
that went fast.
That was a lot of fun. Thank you guys.
Yeah.
Pascal and M. Toussaint, thanks so much.
Yeah, man.
Billy, it was a pleasure being interviewed by you over that piece, man. You got to come on again. We'd love to have you on again. This has been great.
For sure.
I appreciate it. Yeah.
All right.
Would you like to say the words?
And M. Toussaint and Billy, we are
out.
Out.